Interrupt me, argue with me, change the subject.
Not us, okay?
But yeah, I was really stoked to talk to you guys because I wasn't super aware of your music, and it was sort of this what do you call it, like kismet, where I got a promo for your song On My Mama and loved it, and I was listening to it a bunch, and then it was shortly thereafter that like all this got set up. And I don't know, sometimes you hear the right song at the right time and it kind of gets you stoked
awesome.
about music.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. That song's like so special to us because I feel like it was a song that we made just very on the whim one day.
Yeah,
I like pocketed it for the longest time. Didn't really show anybody it.
Yeah, we had it for, I don't know, a few years. It was one of the first songs that we kind of like made that felt like a proper song, but we didn't finish it. And then we came back around and finished it a few years later. Yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
that way.
yeah. Well, those are fun because it's like, what I liked about it is I could hear the Chicago in it, right? Like it was the vocals and sort of the booty house like elements of it. I think there's an authenticity to it that you can hear if you've been there and been around like the actual culture, but then updated in an interesting way that I think fits in with like the larger sphere of, I don't know, of what's happening in dance music and house music now. And it's just one of those, I don't know, every once in a while you hear a song that's like, just updates something in like a simple but elegant way that's like, oh yeah, this is like I was waiting for somebody to do this. You know what I mean?
I really appreciate that. Yeah, because I feel like that embodies completely like what we are going for, and even like our experience with music and our upbringing, and kind of, you know, using those qualities of sound that we kind of grew up listening to, and the things that we love about like Chicago house and the booty house sound, but putting our own type of spin on it. So yeah, thank you for seeing that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Thank you for making it. I mean, it's yeah. It's also fun to like have it, like you were saying, you had the song for a while, let it sit, then you come back to it, finish it up with a new perspective. I like that too, because that's sort of is going back to your roots and kind of going back to like a younger version of yourself where you're like, I have an idea I'm excited about, but I don't know how to execute it yet. And then you can kind of, it's like time traveling a little bit to be like, okay, who is that kid with that idea? Let's see what we can do with that kid, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like both of us are very idea heavy, especially her. Yeah. So she's always she'll pump out ideas and I'm like, okay, like this is a good idea, but it doesn't sound as solid as it needs to. So it's cool to get more experience. And like the more we learn, we're able to nurture those ideas even better.
Yeah. Well, what was your, I mean, I'm a little all over the place and we'll focus in a second, but just out of curiosity, what was your guys' journey for music production? Like, how did you start getting interested in making music? And then what was that process of, you know, refining to the point where you're really able to have this, you know, this solid perspective that somebody can hear and identify?
Yeah, we started DJing before producing. So we've been DJing for 7 years or so.
7 years.
And then we were kind of doing more open format, hip hop, house, ghetto house, kind of mixing a few things together. Yeah, funk. Just very open format. And then kind of just got more narrowed down into like, okay, we just want to play house music. We're not trying to do all these different kinds of parties. We're throwing events, doing all sorts of things kind of all over the place. So we knew we wanted to narrow in. And once we kind of narrowed that in, we knew we wanted to produce. So we went to Icon.
Yeah, we did have some early days of
messing around
and playing around and watching a lot of YouTube, which I think that you can learn so much on YouTube. And it definitely helped us a lot in our early days of production. However, Icon really like elevated that for us. It was really good to have like a structured program for music. So we did that. It was, I mean, coinciding kind of with quarantine. Finished up around then. And then from there, it's just kind of like skyrocketed, continuing to learn every day and continue to like, go back to YouTube and do different workshops. But it kind of like continued to nurture it. And that's how we are here now.
That's dope. I mean, do you feel like obviously there's always more to learn. You can always get, refine your process and all that. But do you feel like you're sort of happy with the point you're at right now? Like, how do you feel about it? Is there still stuff you're trying to learn to get to, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think like starting this year, it was finally like at the point where it's really fun to be in the studio. I think before it was more of a not like a challenge. It wasn't like I didn't want to do it, but there were so many things I wanted to do and didn't know how to. So now it's like at the point where I can get in, I'm like, okay, I want it to sound like this, and I know exactly what I need to do. And we're always still learning so much.
Same thing. I think it is a forever learning journey. Like there's always room for improvement.
Yeah.
But I am happy with what we're doing, and I think that every song that we put out so far, we don't release it until we both are like pretty 100% about it.
Like with where we're at at that point, yeah.
So, I mean, even from our first release to now, I definitely could see a lot of growth, but I think at each point of them, we felt really good with where we're at. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, where did the idea, you mentioned you were DJs before you were producers. Were you DJing back in Chicago, or did that start up once you came out to LA?
It started in LA. In Chicago, our music experience was more so like we played piano
as kids.
We like played the clarinet. Most of our family who does music is more so into classical music or jazz. So in terms of DJing, we knew house music, but I wasn't going out to clubs in Chicago. So we moved out after high school. And like once we went to a proper club here, we met one of the DJs and we instantly were like, okay, we want to learn. It's just like everyone wants to learn how to DJ.
Yeah, I didn't understand it at the time, but now like everyone wants to learn how to DJ. People are constantly asking. So I understand why he had that reaction at that time.
Yeah. But thankfully he let us come. So like it was it was
like a bunch of like DJs back to back.
Yeah, like a hangout. Of course, we were like the only girls there. We're like, we want to like get in here. Like that was in the mix. So they kind of like taught us on the spot. And right after, I remember both of us were like, okay, so when are we doing this again? And they're like, we do this once a month. And I'm like, once a month? Like, can we do this next week? How can we set this up? So we brought like the cheapest controller, like just what we could afford at the time. We were still in school and stuff. And yeah, we just started practicing at home. And it was more so a hobby for us at first. We got jobs after college and we were working, but we're just DJing. And I remember one of our friends worked at a fashion brand. And they had an event. She was like, oh, do you guys want to DJ it? And we're like, we haven't DJed in public. But yeah, I mean, I think we could do it. And then from there, just kind of start taking on gigs. And yeah.
Was your experience when you were in Chicago? So to give you some background on me, I grew up in Minneapolis and I've always been like a little raver kid, even when I was like a teenager. But it wasn't until I moved to Chicago and really saw how dance music and like homegrown dance music, house and juke and that kind of stuff, it was so much a part of people's lives and culture in a way that I hadn't experienced just growing up in Minneapolis. Like to me, it was always sort of this secret thing that I had found that I had to like go and seek out. Whereas I moved to Chicago and, drive time on whatever 92.3 is like, it's like DJ Nafit's playing an hour of juke, that kind of thing. And I'd never had that before. Was that your experience growing up there? Was it just kind of around you?
It's really cool because I didn't realize how different it was until I moved away. We definitely grew up hearing juke and ghetto house on the radio as kids, or we'd have skating parties at school and there's ghetto house music. And I didn't think anything of it. It was just kind of what we knew.
It wasn't until I moved here where I was like, where are the house radio stations? And of course, radios had
it's like had waves. Like I think more so towards the end of our time in Chicago, it would be like the hip hop stations would play hip hop and they'd throw, some juke ghetto house songs in the mix,
But yeah, it definitely was around us. And even my mom's friends and stuff, they're definitely big house heads. Mm-hmm. So getting to see their experience and even going to like the Chosen Few house picnic, where it's like more so the OG house scene, it's just kind of a part of the culture. It's like, oh, it's summer. We go out and we listen to house music.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those, it kind of just becomes like a natural thing. Like, I feel like it's just in the blood a little bit in a way that, like you said, most American cities don't exactly have that,
Yeah.
It's growing.
I'm glad it's growing, but I'm definitely grateful that we were able to grow up in Chicago at that time,
Yeah. It's
like at least seeing it like more so in the forefront of the radio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was so interesting because I think I'm a little older, so my like Chicago references are probably like a generation of club kids back. But I remember when I was DJing there all the time, I was DJing like 4 or 5 nights a week, just anything I could do. And it was right around the time, I don't know if you guys know this song, but do you remember Dudenem, Watch My Feet? It was like this rap song, these local Chicago dudes it was like a juke rap song that had, it like popped off for a second, they got,
that song?
Yeah, Watch My Feet. Well, Watch My Feet, that one. And so around that time, that was going crazy in Chicago. And I was in this like way more white, like hipster DJ scene with like Blog House and, Justice and all this like French electro stuff. And there was this really cool meeting where like those two worlds started to come together. And it was one of the first times where I really saw like, how that homegrown culture can truly like change the way people process and think about music. And I don't know, it's like one of those things that could only happen in Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah, I was like, that sounds really awesome to experience. I mean, it's cool now because I think a lot of people haven't seen that culture. So it's cool that we're able to expose people to a sound they maybe haven't heard before or maybe heard briefly and incorporate it into like, I don't know, sounds they're more familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those funny things like what you guys do, what I was saying at the beginning of this conversation, I think is it's sort of just that little flip of an idea that I think somehow helps people to understand it so much more, Because with sounds like juke, or to take it into a whole nother world, a lot of people are excited about like drum and bass in America right now. That seems to be having a moment. There's all these little micro genres that for whatever reason, like never cross over fully or never have that full mainstream moment. And I don't know. Not that that's what you guys are trying to do necessarily, but I think you're sort of doing it anyway,
I mean, I think if you listen to juke music, it's hard to dance to for most people. Like, unless you really know how to footwork, it's kind of hard. So it's cool to take pieces of that and be like, all right, here's how you can like dance to it in like a more casual way.
Maybe one day we'll just come out with like a full album of just straight juke footwork music. But I think it's really cool to kind of incorporate it into a more like
adaptable way.
So, I mean, growing up, where'd you grow up in Chicago?
Chatham.
Okay,
like, kind of south of Hyde Park.
Yeah. You mentioned other people in your family were musical. Are we talking like professional musicians?
Yes, like yes and no. Our uncle played in the military and then played in the presidential band, but he played French horn. Our grandpa played clarinet, like jazz clarinet, like unprofessionally, but him and like our uncle
like our street uncle.
Yeah.
And then
our parents are like big music lovers.
Lots of cousins, like singers, band members, but a lot like non-professional as far as like cousins and just family. Everyone just likes to play music. Like at Thanksgiving, people just bring their instruments and be like, hey, this is what I've been working on. Just like playing music around the house in general. I think it's been around us, but not in a, I don't know, you have to do this way, but
yeah. Well, I mean, and you said you did some piano.
Yeah. We definitely learned as kids and we're like into it for a while, but unfortunately, not unfortunate. Everything happens, how it is, but we definitely focused in on sports as we got older, and kind of strayed away from music and came back to it. Now when I look at it, I'm like,
I wish I just stuck with it.
But hey, it is what it is.
It's like one of those things, like we enjoyed playing piano as kids, but also it's kind of like, I'd rather be like outside. I'd rather be hanging out with friends.
My friends are doing this. I want to go like do these sports.
I want to go to piano lesson.
Yeah, I know how that goes. Yeah, it always comes back around. I mean, if you're doing sports a lot out there and music is around you, it's something you enjoy, but it's maybe not the main thing. When did that start to change?
I mean, I feel like music always stayed with us. Like I definitely remember so many times we like make CDs and like put like full playlists on
made all my
school,
friends,
where we had like little mixtapes. But I don't know. I feel like it stayed kind of in the background, always there for years. I mean, even through college, it was like a part of our lives. But like it wasn't something that I saw into a career until I think we did like our first gig, which was like that.
Not even then. I feel like then it was like, this is a fun hobby. And then it switched into like, oh, we can actually do this for a living. Yeah. Probably a couple months in, I was like, okay, like, yeah, it kind of just sprung upon us type of thing.
I don't know, like if there was like a definite moment.
Was it just kind of the
I think there was one day that we were both at our jobs and we were working, we were DJing, we were kind of like doing a lot of different things. And then we were just like tired and we were talking, we're like, let's quit our jobs. And we're like, yeah, just like a random moment. And we're like, all right, tomorrow we're going to quit our jobs and we'll figure this out kind of moment. And that was kind of like, all right, a kick in the butt. Like, you have to figure this out if you're going to bet your life on it type of thing.
Yeah,
but
I feel like not having that
safety net.
Yeah, the safety net under us really like kicked in the gears where it's like, okay, if you want to really do this, then let's do it. And yeah, I feel like sometimes
we've been doing this full time for a while, like probably like 5.5 years or so. Like after like a year of learning how to DJ, we're like, I'm just going to do this.
Yeah.
It just felt like a very like drawn type of thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We both have a lot of love for it. And I feel like kind of when you know, you're like, okay, this feels like what I'm meant to be doing. So we follow those instincts, maybe a little too much. But thankfully it's been working out for us.
Yeah, no, that's good. I mean, it's tough. If you think back to that moment of like having that conversation about, I'm not feeling these jobs. This is not the direction I want to be heading in. Was it anything in particular that day? Was there something about it? Because I feel like I was just talking to somebody. I had a similar experience, except I got fired instead of deciding to quit, which for me was sort of a blessing in disguise, because if I hadn't gotten fired, I'm like, I probably would have just stayed there for a long time, even though, like you, it wasn't my favorite thing. And I knew there were other things that would probably be more fun. But for you, being able to just do it on your own initiative, I think is impressive. Like, was it just kind of a shared conversation of like, yeah, we both think this sucks and maybe we got to change it?
I mean, I think you actually really liked your job.
I enjoyed my job a lot. I moved out here. I wanted to do fashion buying. I got a job in a buying office. I was like, wow, this is my dream job. Like, I was very happy with my job, had great benefits. But then I kind of was just sitting there like, okay, I loved this when I was a kid. Like, it was like more so a childhood dream. And I was like, it's cool, I'm making that happen, but is this what I actually want to do for the rest of my life? And kind of just like reanalyzing that and looking at everyone around me and being like, cool, like this person's been working here 20 years. Is that what I want to be doing in 20 years? Yeah. And I don't know, just kind of hit a moment. I went on like a solo trip. I went to Bali by myself and I was like, let me find myself. I came back and I just felt like so free. And I was like, what am I trying to do for the rest of my life? And I don't know, just when the moment talking to you, she didn't like her
I didn't have the whole eat, pray, love experience, but I wasn't really resonating with any of my jobs. I did marketing and I don't know, it just wasn't for me. Felt like I was just forcing people to buy things that I was like, if people want to buy this, they could buy this. It just, I don't know why I thought that this was like what I wanted to do, but
yeah,
I definitely was more so like loving the creative side. So I got more into graphic design and I was doing that for a while, but the same with it, like I didn't have a lot of creative freedom. And I think that's one thing that I just struggled with a lot. And I kind of like to move to my own drum, and having a boss telling me what to do wasn't working for me. So I feel like I was constantly just like really having that like power struggle and like creative freedom, like issue with jobs. And I was also trying to like take every gig that we could, like we were constantly staying up till like 2, 3 a.m. doing after hours and then waking up at 6 a.m. and going to a job and not sleeping. And like my body was just like unhappy. My mind wasn't right. And I was just like, I can't do this. This is not like how I'm going to live. Like it was just multiple things on my part that I was like at my wit's end. Like I feel like it was building and building. And I was like, I'm not going to work tomorrow. But like I put a 2 week in. I was proper. I did the 2 weeks. But I was just like, okay, we need to stop. I'm going to stop. And she was like, I'm down too.
Yeah.
So it worked out.
Well, and it's cool that you're doing it together too. I mean, that's, I guess, sort of an obvious thing to say, but at the same time, like your relationship to each other, have you always like operated as a unit?
Yeah. Like, I think it goes through different waves. There's definitely times that we're more as a unit, even as in our childhood. I think when we were going to school in the beginning, they split us up. They're like, you have to be in separate classes. Then we moved schools. And it's like, all right, we're together now in school. Then it's like high school separate, like very like back and forth. And when we started DJing, we lived together, but we were doing different jobs. So I feel like we spent the evenings together. And then following that, we moved separately. And I feel like that allowed us to each develop in our own ways, like as far as production, DJing, like style of music.
Yeah,
where even
in school we lived separate, which was cool because I feel like we did our classes separate and kind of had our own feels, like the way that we were interpreting the knowledge too.
Yeah, and then now we live back together starting last year, so it's really cool because I think we've gotten a lot of experience separately, but been able to come together in a good way and have a good balance. For now, I'm like, okay, you're better at these things, I'm better at these things. Like as far as music, you have more of this style. Mm-hmm. She has a more like underground style for sure.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I want the bangers.
Right.
kind of thing. So it's really cool because we can come together in a really nice way.
Yeah. How does it play out in the studio for you? Do you have like a standard process of like, let me handle these drums, you chop up this sample, that kind of thing?
I remember one of my mentors was always like, you need to have like your golden goose. Like, what is like your recipe of like the way that you, I don't know, like pump out songs in a way. And I think for us, I definitely am very idea heavy. It tends to be like when songs need wrapping up, if I go into it, I'm going to change the entire song.
The whole entire song.
So
she can't even touch it in final stages. It's going to be a different bass line. The words are, I'm like, how did you re-record the lyrics? Like they were good. Like she'll change everything.
But I like definitely always have a lot of ideas to put out. So even like the other day, like we were like wrapping up with songs. So instead of changing the song, you know, I made 3 new like ideas where I was like, these are very solid. I'll wrap these up later. But I definitely can like go in if something's like, oh, it's like kind of missing something. I think that I'm good at like going in and being like, okay, like this synth would sound really cool here, and like putting those like little touches in. And you're more so like really good at like arrangement, like making sure, I don't know, like the final touches are there, and like mixing and mastering too.
You're good at starting ideas as well.
Oh, sorry.
Well, no, I think I'm gonna I can like start a concept, and then she can like run off with it, and I'll like bring it back together. I think it's like a good way of explaining everything. Okay. Yeah. And she's good at writing lyrics. I can't write lyrics, but she's real solid with that.
I mean, yeah, it's good to have that balance. But I liked what you said too about sort of, you know, splitting off for a while, coming back together. I think in any kind of creative partnership that you kind of have to do that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think about all of our releases, and most of them have been like that, except for our first one. Even like, I remember I came up with like the word ideas one night, and like we went in the studio together and just like made that together. But I feel like it's rare that happens. Yeah. But sometimes we definitely can just both sit there and like make a song together. But a lot of times it's like running off and then like give it to you and like you do your thing and back and forth more so.
How did you start getting your music out there? Because we talked about how sort of the DJing started evolving once you were doing that out in LA. But, you know, the early music stuff, how were people hearing it? How did that evolve?
We put out our first 2 releases. We put out an EP and then another song. We put them out on our own. It was a while of just kind of like, all right, we want to put music out there. When we're going to do it, what actually feels right, like when's the right time, which is, it's never right time.
Never feeling ready.
Never feeling ready. And we're just like, all right, whatever, let's just put out a project. So then we made Berserk, and then I think we put it out within, I don't know, a couple months of doing that. Yeah. I was just kind of like, we have to put something out there. And it was just a single. And then we're like, we want something else to go with it. So we made a different song, and then we're like, no, that's not working. We wanted something that kind of embodied our Chicago sounds. We made Juke That Zerk to go with it, just so like we're not putting out a project that you don't really understand us as a whole. So we're like, this is the one you play in the club, and this is like that underground kind of feel with it. Yeah. And yeah, just put it out.
I mean, we did like a few things, like pushing it out to try to get like interviews. I'm trying to put it out to playlists, but I feel like we were very early. Yeah. And I don't know. It was our first release, so we didn't really know what to do. Yeah. So we were like, share it to our friends. We'll play it out. I'll post it on my story. I didn't really know what to do, but yeah, I don't think we had like a formulated plan. We were like, this is our first release. Let's just share it any way we can, and
just to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
And was it kind of an organic growth from there? Were there any kind of, you know, memorable moments of like, you know, some big name noticing what you're doing or some label being interested, anything like that?
I remember we pitched it to an Insomniac playlist and got on the Insomniac Selects, which I think for us was like such a high moment where we're like, what? Like, that's so big.
Yeah, I didn't know if anyone would listen to the songs in general. So I think that was like a really cool moment. And then even just playing it at shows, I feel like in that moment before we released that, we were playing really exciting shows. So being able to play it out and have our first actual release that we're able to play in front of people rather than just like these random unreleased songs that didn't sound maybe so great. It felt like a really accomplishing moment in general. just seeing people dance to it.
Yeah, it's the best feeling in the world. Yeah.
I think the first time I was like, oh my God, my voice on the speakers. I hate this. But
I feel like I'm finally over that. But it's taken a while to get over just hearing my voice in general on the speakers. I hate it.
Which is a weird thing, right? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but you both seem like performers. You both seem like you'd be relatively comfortable on a stage. That kind of thing. God, is that wrong?
I'm so shy.
Yeah, we're both so shy.
I'm like, things make me nervous more so. I think like in more intimate settings, I definitely am a little more outgoing. But I feel like when it comes to like getting on the mic and being on the stage, I feel like it's something that I've gotten better with time.
It's still working on.
Yeah, it's still working on for sure. Especially when we first started DJing. I remember being like, can you just put us at the back of the club? I want to play the music for the people, but I want no one to look at me. Like, I just kind of wanted to just like be like in the back, like playing some good music. But I think it's just more so like personality wise as kids. I feel like we were both more shy and a little more reserved. And I think definitely through playing more shows, and especially as we get bigger and bigger shows, it's kind of like, okay, you can do this. Like, step out of your comfort zone. Last week, I was like, let me just go up and do a little dance on the stage. Like, try to like push myself to like do more. But
I think it's still like a growing thing for us, like pushing ourselves more and more.
Yeah. Well, and figuring out what part of it is sort of just that shyness that is something you can like sort of work with and adjust, and what part of it is like, this is how I'm comfortable and this is the kind of performance I want to give. I never wanted to
feel like unorganic to us. Like that's also something I'm like, I'm not going to make it like feel routine. Like I don't want it to feel like this is something I do. I want it to feel natural. Like I'm never going to pick up the mic and just say something because I feel like I have to or something like that. Like it has to feel organic, you know?
Yeah, no, 100%. What were the, once you started DJing in LA and getting into like the local scene there, what kind of parties were you doing? What was the scene like, the micro scene that you were in starting off?
So starting off, definitely early in our career, we were throwing events. Mm-hmm. We wanted a space that was very positive in terms of like feeling like mostly like what you would get at a house show. But it was more open format. So we had like more so hip hop DJs with it too. We had like people who play like disco and funk. And then we would play like an open format set. And we threw it at a place called The Lash, which recently just got rebrought and is reopening now. But it was a cool spot downtown. That
very like an underground, like 2-room, small warehousey bar kind of space.
Yeah, I've been there actually. Yeah, it was a fun space. Yeah.
So we were throwing events there for like maybe a year or two. And created a show that went on for a while. And
we moved it to other locations and did that for like a couple, like 2 years.
And then with that was also playing like warehouse parties downtown too, which I feel like is always the best thing for the underground.
Yeah. And were you meeting like what, who was around you, I guess is my question at that time. Like who else was in that scene that you were meeting early on?
I remember we were playing at The Lash. I don't know if you know, like DJ Kita and Bebe Explosion were both throwing events there at the same time, and we like share the rooms and do different things.
I'm trying to think who else would like play our events. Mary Jane. She was playing Coachella this year, where I'm like, that's so cool to go from like playing events together at The Lash, and now you're playing Coachella.
It's kind of cool. Bebe too has like been playing like really awesome shows as well. I feel like a lot of people who were throwing shows at The Lash at that time. Seven. Also, like we all kind of like have branched off in different areas of our career, and it's kind of cool to see where everyone is at now.
Yeah, I had similar experiences in a couple different scenes that way, where it's, you come up with certain people and then you split apart, you come back together, but there's always that connection to the old days and where it all started. Do you have anyone like that who was in your class at Icon?
We did Icon online. Mm-hmm. So I think that definitely changed the experience as far as like personal relationships.
Like I feel like we've met more people outside. And now I'm like, okay, cool. Like we're like doing like a workshop. I'm like, okay, cool. You went here like during this time. And like I meet people now. Like directly in our class, like there's definitely a lot of talented people. But
how was the online experience for that?
It was good.
I think during the time we were just kind of like, all right, I've been out of school for so long. It would be probably challenging for me to get on a very exact schedule. Like I have to be at class at this time for this long. So I think it made it a lot easier to be able to do it on our own schedule.
And then it coincided with like COVID started.
Yeah, COVID started while we were in the program, so that kind of
switched online anyway.
Oh, so you were early.
Yeah, it was like, all right, well,
you knew what was coming.
For us, we were already there, but I mean, it was cool. I think there's definitely experiences that you get when you're on campus that you can't get online. So we definitely missed out on that, but I don't know, it worked for us. So
yeah, no, it's a cool program. I'm a big fan of Icon. I actually did a live podcast there before pre-pandemic. So. Yeah, nice. I like those guys.
I don't think that we'd be where we are right now without have gone that knowledge.
Yeah.
You know, talking about connections and the evolution of all of this, how did the Dirty Bird connection come about?
Just like kind of naturally.
Like life. Yeah, it was like we had gone to Dirty Bird before, like love the festivals, love the music that they put out, and
the culture. Just like the community of Dirty Bird has always like really resonated with us. Just more so as like attendees and like music lovers.
And then we entered the contest to DJ there, and then we didn't win. We're like, all right, next year kind of thing.
We're still going to go.
Yeah, we're still going to go regardless, but we're just like, you know, like you have to put yourself out there. And then
we played the Renegade, at the Dome. We did like a Queendom Renegade put together by Minimize. Shout out to Cammie.
And it was like Vanessa, like Mary Droppins, Baby Wave, like everyone, like all the females who were working with Dirty Bird at the time.
Like it was like a good group of females, and we all played a back-to-back together. And when we got back, we had like someone who knew someone at Dirty Bird that they're like, I'm going to send them one of your mixes. And they booked us for camping.
Yeah, they saw like a YouTube video of us. They sent it to Barclay, and I guess he liked it.
Yeah.
And they booked us for camping. Like very surreal, like very quick. It was kind of like within a month from going to Dirty Bird to just like within a month. All right, you're booked and you're going to Orlando and you're playing.
Yeah, we're like, we have to go and play like an insane set. We definitely played a very risky, just like crazy set. It was
we were going from like 80 to like, I don't know,
like 120 house, and then be like, okay, let's play a 160 like footwork. It was just like a crazy set, but we're like, okay, we're gonna go and make a very memorable set. Yeah. And thankfully they really
played at 5 a.m. too. So we're like 5 a.m. on the last day. We're just kind of like, fuck it, we're just gonna go all out. And it worked out.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I feel like their audience is fairly open-minded as far as, you know, a set that goes all over the map.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of freedom that you can have with playing a set with them.
Yeah.
You're able to like play something that you typically probably wouldn't be able to play for a house crowd.
Yeah, and that was... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that they're like open-minded and into hearing new things and like new sounds like that.
I was going to say that one of our goals for the year or for next year was like, we want to book a tour, but we wanted to book a tour that would allow us to play the music that we actually like to play. Like, I didn't want to have to somewhat tweak my style in any way. So we definitely were so grateful being able to go on this Dirty Bird tour right now. Because I'm like, we get to play actually our sound everywhere.
That's such a crazy thing you just said. I want to put a pin on that, because that's, you put it perfectly. It's like, you're at the point where you've got enough interest in you that you can start thinking about booking a tour, all of that. But that's such good perspective to say, I want a tour where I can actually play the music I want to play, because I think it's one of those things that sounds obvious, but I think so many artists get in that position where it's like, you sort of feel like you have to change what you really want to do, even a little bit, to satisfy an audience, or to, I don't know, or some kind of external pressure, or maybe even just you think you have to because that's what happens on a bigger level. Yeah. So that's good perspective, man, because not everybody is thinking about that, when you're first starting to book tours.
Yeah, it definitely was like a thought of ours. I feel like you could go and like still play your style, and it's a jeopardy whether or not it works, but yeah, we definitely lucked out with that. And it's like exciting too. Like we have some shows that think the headliners kind of push us to be like, oh, maybe we should experiment with playing some new sounds with this. I know in Detroit, we have a show coming up with Mersive, and I love Mersive.
Oh, yeah.
We play some different music. So I think it's going to be interesting where it'd be cool to play some of our sound, but also like we can be experimental in terms of like, things that we typically wouldn't play.
Yeah, 100%. Has the touring in general, is it still picking up? Like, do you feel like it's just getting busier and busier right now?
I mean, I feel like we just had such a busy point that
March was crazy. Yeah. I think that was the craziest month we've had in our whole careers for sure.
Yeah.
I hope it keeps picking up. It was fun. It was just crazy.
Yeah. I think that like now we have mostly like one show a weekend, and I'm really like making the most of it, and like really enjoying having like space and time. Because definitely in March we had like weekends that were playing 3 shows in a weekend, and it was just something that I wasn't used to. So I feel like my body was very overworked.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least for the next like about month, like or 2 months, we have like shows every weekend. So like it's still consistent, but I think that like the peak of that was great.
Yeah.
Also now we're like trying to find a balance with like getting back into the studio as well, and having the balance of like playing shows while continuing to like make new music. So
live a normal life too, and like have like
just be normal human.
Which is hard to do. I mean, this is a question I ask on the podcast a lot, and it's pretty open ended. But for what you're doing right now in your lives and your careers, what's the most exciting part? What's the most fun part? Whether it's, the thing you wake up excited to do, whether that's getting in the studio, whether that's hopping on a plane or playing a show, or relaxing and living a normal life, any of that.
I feel like there's so many like moments.
Yeah, I think there's so many great moments. I mean, I definitely like meeting people. I feel like touring has been so fun. I've met such cool people. But also, like, I mean, playing shows everywhere. I think I enjoy the new atmospheres, like seeing new clubs and seeing new crowds and playing in front of new people. I think that's really fun. I love coming home. She has a cat, and I love her cat so much. I love coming home to her cat.
Person moving back in with me. She moved back into me for my cat. I'm good. But yeah, I just love like those moments, like those like peak moments on sets where people are just going wild and like letting loose, and especially going to cities that I don't really know about the housing there, and just seeing them like really, really enjoying the music and like that loving, just good environment.
We played in New Mexico last weekend in Albuquerque, and the crowd was so fun. I didn't expect it to be as fun. Not that I didn't expect it to be fun, but I didn't know what to expect. I hadn't seen the house scene there, and they were so much fun.
They were wild. I got to see some titties. I got flashed a few times. I was like, I'm crazy in the crowd.
Albuquerque. All right.
It was really fun though, and like they were like really like receptive of our music too, which I really appreciated.
That's so cool. Yeah, that's such a fun moment to go somewhere where you don't really have a reference for it, and then to feel so welcomed and like, and just that there was this whole thing going on that you didn't know about, and all of a sudden you're a part of it. And that is really fun. What you said too about seeing new clubs, I like that. That's underappreciated, I think. That was always fun for me. It's just like seeing a new space, a new place that people have been partying in. I don't know why. That's so fun.
Yeah. I mean, my favorite place has been Denver. I feel like Denver has some really cool places.
It's got a great scene.
The Beacon?
Yeah, the Beacon. That was really cool.
So cool. Like each room is like decorated like so uniquely. The owners like made it all by hand, and I was just like, you would never know like these amazing venues right here if you're like living outside the city.
Really cool like natural cocktails, and it was a really cool place. It was like a mini Meow Wolf.
Right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Have you guys gotten to go overseas yet for any shows?
No, we haven't.
On the goal list.
Yeah, we both love traveling, so it's definitely a goal of ours. So,
did you do much traveling when you were younger?
Yeah, I mean, our mom really likes traveling, so
not really internationally. We traveled a lot around the States as kids, and then kind of after we moved out of here after college, we're like, we want to travel.
Yeah, we've gone to Europe once, but I definitely would like to go back. Both of us really liked Amsterdam, and Berlin, and Munich.
Yeah, I liked Munich a lot.
Yeah.
Munic's dope.
We went to Oktoberfest though, so I was like, of course.
Oh, you were there for Oktoberfest?
We coincided. Like
we planned our whole trip around Oktoberfest.
Well, both of us are big beer drinkers.
Oh, there you go.
Not so much right now. Like, but it was at a point in time where I was like, okay, if I'm gonna go ever, this is the time to do it. And we just went full out.
Oh, it's crazy. I was in Munich for the 200th anniversary of Oktoberfest. Just randomly on tour. I was DJing and just happened to be in Munich on the 200th anniversary of Oktoberfest. And they like took us into one of those big beer tents. And I mean, it was, I've never seen anything like that. It was crazy.
We had a full experience. We wore like the full drindles. Like we did the whole outfits. We were like, if we're gonna go,
we're under their wing. They're like, no, you have to come here. You got to dance on the table. And I was like, okay, well, let's do the full experience.
I might have been up on a table too. Yeah.
But I'm like, if I'm gonna be here, I'm gonna have the full experience.
You gotta do it. Yeah, they're professionals over there. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm like, you guys could outdrink me any day.
That's nuts.
Put up a good fight.
Yeah, we put up a good fight. I was like, oh, you guys can hang. Okay.
What kind of beer are we drinking if you have your choice?
She's such a IPA person.
It doesn't be like high alcohol like percentage, but like taste wise, I like a bitter.
Yeah, the hoppy.
Yeah. It's not for me. I drink sours. I drink Hefeweizens.
Yeah, I'm
probably
more,
like Hefs are my favorite.
Yeah, I'm more on your end. I can't do the IPAs, but.
I feel like my go to just like an everyday beer. Like I definitely could drink like a Dos Equis, and I love like the lime and salt ones. Those are delicious.
Yeah, those are really good. Have you ever met or talked to the DJ Azeka, who's also from Chicago? The only reason I asked, she brews her own beer.
What?
Yeah,
so
and
cool.
she's super dope. She does stuff with like Gorgon City's label, and yeah.
That's so cool. I would love to brew beer one day. That'd be so sick.
That would be dope. Yeah, I've never done that.
It would be fun. Make some new flavors.
I tried to make kombucha once, and I'm convinced that I don't need to dapple anywhere near like making. It was not good.
Well, isn't it funny sometimes for like what we do? It's like we're all creative people, we're artists, blah blah blah, but then you're like, oh, I can make whatever. And you try your hand at something new and it's just like, oh, no, I got to go back.
We're definitely those kind of people. I think I can do anything creative. And we tried to reupholster our couch. And like, it's still not done. Yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, reupholstering. Yeah, I can do it.
Yeah. Well, that actually makes me think of what you were talking about earlier of sort of finding what you thought was your dream job with fashion buying and that sort of thing. And then sort of realizing once you were there that maybe this is cool, but maybe it's not actually the end all be all of that kind of thing. It's an interesting thing because I think that happens in music too. Like, this is maybe too broad of a question, but just if it sparks something for you, let me know. Like, I think about all these moments I've had where, we're all goal oriented and it's like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this, and I got to take this step so I can get to this next rung on the ladder, that kind of thing. But it's funny because once you get to those places, it's never exactly what you thought it was going to be, or it doesn't feel the way you thought it was going to feel, or you kind of just end up seeing the next hill past the one you got to the top of. Have you had any of those moments yet of like, oh, we've achieved this thing that we've wanted for so long, but like, oh, now there's just this other thing.
I think like definitely when like starting the tour, like I was so, I don't know, like I was just like anxious, like what is it going to be like? What is this? And like the first show, I was like, okay, it's like a show, like I have to focus on like what's next. And definitely was like very much like living like week to week of being like, okay, this show's finished. Now I have this and like doing that. And I think that more so recently I've been able to like slow down a lot more and be like more so in the present moment where it's like, you're never going to know what the show is going to be like. You can't predict how it's going to feel, how the crowd's going to be, how everything is. So like taking it more slowly and like trying to live in the moment. But I definitely feel like in the beginning, I was just like, okay, this show's going to be like this. Okay, I have to like make sure I bring this energy because this venue feels like it. And it's just like being too like in my head and like over analyzing it a lot.
I think also I can relate to that in just like finding our sound in general. So I think you're like, okay, like I produce music this way, I play music this way. And I think our sets were a certain way and the music we were producing in the beginning was a certain way. And trying to like be like, all right, this is my sound, but we weren't able to exactly produce that. Like, I don't know if that came out right.
No, I think
like
I know what you're saying.
Coming out was like different in a sense than like what I expected and wanted it to be.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you have to be open to surprising yourself and not to get too married to like your own self-identity, like your idea of who you are and what you do, because it can always change and it can always evolve. But I think at least I'll speak for myself, I can get so stuck in like, no, this is my sound, or like, this is what people want from me, or this is who people think I am, that kind of thing. where,
Definitely.
not that all of that is kind of false because you can change that anytime, but it doesn't always feel like it,
Yeah, I feel like most people feel like they can't change their sound. So I think it's important to feel like you're not married to it, Yeah,
I definitely can like resonate with what you're saying. Definitely, especially as we started gaining traction. I think that we were like, people were asking like, oh, what's your genre? What is your sound? And having to put like a label on it where I was like, I guess I'll say this, but also we're a little bit of everything, and feeling like, okay, just because we're branded this way, like this is our sound, this is what we play mostly, like we have to make that too. And I think that as we continue to make music, we do make that, but we also have a lot of other sounds as well.
Are a little all over the place, but
no, in the best way.
In the best way.
We definitely have been like inspired by some like I'm a piano and like having like tasted that in there and like I don't know, even like with Jersey Club, like having a house that is juke but also has a bit of that influence as well. And as you continue to like hear new sounds and get interested in new music, being able to incorporate those influences, but stay true to ourselves, trying to find that balance.
Yeah. No, that's the whole game right there. That's the whole thing. What are you working on right now, or what are you excited about that you're working on or that's coming up, or just a vision for the future? It doesn't even have to be like a specific thing.
Yeah, we have like a few tracks that we are sitting on that we are excited.
Yeah, we literally like our plan for this week is to send the songs that we just kind of wrapped up out to some labels. So we're excited about that. Mm-hmm. We have some songs that have like more singing on it, which we haven't done before.
Featured by her with her voice. Yeah, but they actually sound quite nice, which I'm
everything's been excited about. Some cool like more banger songs that we're going to be playing in our upcoming shows.
We have some collabs featuring iconic, really amazing ghetto house juke artist that I'm really excited to get out. Hopefully will be coming out this year.
Man, what else was I going to ask you? Oh, this is not exactly connected to what we were just talking about, but I wanted to ask you too, like as things are growing, getting a little busier, you're getting into more consistent touring, you're working with people that you grew up listening to, that kind of thing. How do you deal with, we talked about like maybe you're a little shy, you have to sort of learn how to become like a more public figure. How do you deal with the public facing side of it in general, as far as like social media and, branding and public perception and all that? Is that something that you enjoy dealing with? Is it something that stresses you out? How does it figure into everything else you're doing?
I think it's something that we're like learning as we go. Mm-hmm. I think you're better at social media. She's worked in marketing and things like that. So I think you're a lot better with those type of things. But also like with our social media, I never wanted to feel forced. Like that's
I feel like for both of us, we only post and do things when we feel like it. Which is something that we had to decide for ourselves based on our own wellness and mental health. During a point in time, I felt like, okay, I have to post. I have to do this. Like, we have to be doing this for us and like building our career. And at the end of the day, I feel like it was hurting us more than anything. And we both took a social media break it was almost like a year for a while. We kept our page up for music, but we weren't really posting on it besides like essential things. And then both of us for our personal pages and own well-being, we were just like not using it at all. And I think by doing that, when coming back to it, we both had decided, we're only going to post if we are feeling inspired to do so. If I wake up and I'm like, oh, this is a fun idea, like let's post this on our story. Or if we're just staying there, we're like, okay, this is like something I want to do right now, rather than feeling like I have to.
Oh, I need to take a photo. I need to post this flyer. I need to do this. Like, I don't want it to feel scheduled and anything like that.
So just like more so doing it when we feel like we want to. And if I don't feel like posting today, like I'm not going to do it. If there's nothing on my story, like, hey, I'm just having a day to myself. And even I think more so like being out and having to talk with a lot of people has been more so a push for me, because I'm just not used to it. Like there was a point in time where I'm like, I go out and like no one talks to me. Like I'm just here vibing. And I think the more we continue to grow, like that's not necessarily the case, which is great. Like I love meeting people, but there are times that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go take a moment for myself in the back room. Like, I just need to like breathe and like, it can be a little overwhelming sometimes, but I just try to check in with myself and at the end of the day, take care of myself. And like, if I am not taking care of myself, I don't have that energy to give other people, whether it's online or in person. So just like coming back to that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Did you grow up with social media? Like, how early did you have social media?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely had a MySpace, and
MySpace. I think like freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
It's like when that kind of started.
Yeah.
And like AIM and stuff.
I mean, I think we had it before. I mean, I don't know. We had it when we were younger than high school. Because I remember in high school, I used Facebook. Oh, yeah. And then I used Instagram like towards the end of high school.
Okay.
Yeah, like maybe 7th grade.
Yeah.
Because I remember during the time, like
one time to start those.
Yeah.
I know our parents were freaking out. They were like, "Oh my God, who are you talking to? What is this?" Like, very much that energy. But yeah, because I feel like we're like kind of between, I don't know, like errors. Just be right in the middle.
Yeah. Well, because if you're talking about like AIM and MySpace, that's definitely another era. But then, it seems like maybe you're sort of straddling that line a little bit.
Yeah, because it was definitely towards the end. I didn't have a MySpace for that long, but I definitely used it.
Yeah.
I had my little top eight. Decorated my profile out, you know. It was fun.
I think like it's so different now. I think in high school, having an Instagram now is so different than MySpace thing. So it's like we were just talking to our friends. It wasn't about like having a public profile. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a weird thing to think about. Yeah, just being a kid and feeling like you need a public persona at all. You know what I mean? Because I feel like there are kids growing up now that from a young age, it's like, oh, I have to have a public persona, you know?
Yeah, and definitely. And like very young.
Yeah.
Even where they're like 10. And I'm like, you don't need a social profile. Like no one needs to know who you are.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm very happy that we caught like that end of it, because definitely I wasn't even thinking about meeting new people on social media. I was just like, this is a way for me to be with my friends online when I get home from school. Right. And I like to post pictures of things that I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just funny how all of this changes. And, you know, even what we were just talking about of like posting when you want to post, but then still feeling like you need to have some presence to promote your music. So I'm curious to see where it all goes as far as that goes, because I do feel like kind of everyone's sick of the current paradigm, but there's also no one has like a solution for the next thing, you know?
It's like we're all complaining. It's like the algorithm sucks. Like this app sucks. And it's just kind of like, well, we don't know what to do about it, but
I'm very intrigued to see like if there is a what's next, because I feel like we've all been on like Instagram for a while, and like TikTok has, you know, like had waves of like alive and like down and up and down. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's the next platform, or like, are we just going
and like
back
Twitter's really going to shit now too, and you know, so it's like, I don't know.
I feel like Twitter and Instagram, it's like their own doing. Like they're just digging themselves in holes. I'm like, guys, just leave things as they are.
Oh my God,
how they were. It would
be. No, 100%. It's so stupid. It's like, well, the Twitter thing is just Elon Musk being a maniac, but Instagram, I feel like, it's just capitalism like eating itself. It's like they're just trying to make more money and maximize everything, and it's
hurting themselves in the long run.
And just copy what everyone else is doing. I'm just like, just be yourself. Like, I feel like anytime there's any new platform, they're like, okay, and we'll add that too, and we'll have this too. And it's
right.
Like it's not broke. You don't have to fix it. Like, it's fine.
It's just a race to the bottom, man. Oh man, it's wild. What else do I have? I'm just looking at my notes here. Oh, I did want to ask you, this is going to be a totally different note, but I wanted to make sure I asked you guys about this before we log off. I was looking here, this is how I'll connect it. I was looking at your Instagram and scrolling through a few things, and I saw the post that you made about the Journal for First Responders that you both released, kind of to honor your dad. And I wanted to ask you, as much as you would like to talk about it, I know it's a sensitive topic, but what is the history there, and what is the intention with that journal? Because it just seemed like a pretty amazing project.
Well, thank you. It's definitely a very special project to us. Our dad passed away 4 years ago by suicide. He was a first responder and had just retired. And I don't know, I think a lot of first responders deal with a lot of mental health strain, and they're departments aren't very supportive of it. And we weren't really aware as far a degree of how that was until afterwards and meeting other families who had faced the same things. So we kind of just we both journal a lot. So wanted to create a project and a journal for first responders because there's nothing like that available. When we're looking at books and different things like that, there's very minimal resources.
Yeah, one thing that we were talking a lot with was people who are still on duty. And they were saying that a lot of times if you go into the department and report about having a type of mental health issue, whether it's like, yeah, a lot of times they say, oh, you're not fit to do the job right now. And like, you'll be cut from the schedule.
Oh, right.
So you're kind of like playing with whether you're choosing, your financial well-being, especially with having a family, or your mental health. And when you're seeing very traumatic things every day on the job, that's like a hard thing to go back and forth between. So we wanted something that would be able to be a resource and be able to help you while you're still on duty without having to necessarily take out of work, and maybe lead you to getting a therapist on your own or whether it's whatever, but just having a resource that is accessible to hopefully help even just one person, that's a dad or a mom, and it can make a difference. So yeah, we wanted to do that on our dad's part.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. And in the journal itself, is it like writing prompts kind of thing?
Yeah. So there's there's different chapters, and they each start with like a preface and like some writing, and then there's prompts within each category as well. Because one thing for me when I first started journaling, like people are like, just write. I'm like, write what? Like it's hard for me to sometimes just sit there and write. Like I definitely respond better with prompts. And I think that especially for someone when you're like struggling with your health, they're like, okay, where do I start? So we wanted to give space for that, as well as like some free writing at the end as well.
I really like that because I think for a lot of people, the idea of therapy, getting a therapist, talking to a stranger, that kind of thing, it can be a big block that will keep people from taking any kind of action. But I like the idea of something like a journal, especially with prompts, that kind of thing, because that's much lower of a bar, It's just
a lot less intimidating, and it's very private. So I think it's a really good way to start checking in with your mental health.
And even for myself, like there's days that I don't journal. I do a lot of the time. A lot of the times it's like, when I'm not feeling so great, it's like, okay, what can I do? Like, I feel like in a rut, I can go journal. And I hope that this resource is something for those people. If you get home from work and you're not feeling that good, you can think, okay, at least I have this is something I can pour into if you don't want to sit there and talk to someone about it in person.
Yeah. What was the process of, because it's obviously a beautiful and great idea, but actually making the book and putting it out, that must have been a lot of learning real fast.
Yeah, it was a lot of
took
research.
2 years.
Yeah, it took 2 years of talking to people, researching, writing, like doing different drafts, and to get from the start to finish, it's definitely been a lot of work.
The version we made, it literally was like, we made it on a thing and we pretty much like printed out, like if you went to Staples and printed out and stapled it together. Like it was pretty much just like a pamphlet kind of book. And going from there to get it into like more of a, I don't know, what was this called?
Bound?
Like a bound type of book. But it still wasn't like a proper book. And then we're just looking at it and we're like, we can't sell this to anybody. Like it looks like I just made it.
It was great because we made them when we were mostly donating it. I don't think that our intention, eventually we're like, we should get these just out to as many people as possible. But starting out, we weren't really like, oh, we should like go and sell these, It was more so just making it a resource. And we worked with a company, Blue Help. They specifically focus on families who have lost people through suicide. And they also work with different departments with getting resources to active people as well.
For first responders.
Right.
And yeah, like when working with them, they were able to distribute a lot of the journals that we had made before and help us a lot with that process as well. So shout out to you guys. They're so amazing. And they've been so heartfelt and amazing with helping us as people as well and being good resources for a lot of different families. So we really appreciate them. And especially after working with them and getting the resource out to a lot of people, we had a really great response and people were asking, oh, where can I buy this? Like, where can I send this to more people? And that's kind of where we decided to put it online and have it be more available and have all the proceeds go back into just funding it and getting it out to more people as well. And we definitely take no proceeds in this. It's not about that, but yeah, after having that type of platform and getting it out to more people is more so what pushed us to make it a little bit more official. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's beautiful. It's a really good thing that you've done. And please tell me if this is too personal, but your dad, was he a firefighter or a policeman?
He was a police officer.
Okay.
Chicago's such a wild city. It's like the crime there is pretty, I don't know.
Yeah. And I feel like especially with like, I don't know, there's been so many like whims of emotions, because I feel like growing up for us, like I had my dad like going off on duty, and I was more so like, okay, like every night I remember staying up together, being like,
we would get home from work every day between midnight and 1 a.m.
So and we would stay up every single night, and I was just like, dad getting home, like it was just like like a worry for me all the time. And then as I got older, I had more so like a dislike towards a lot of the department, because I was like, these police are kind of corrupt, like they're not really all good people. Like I knew my dad was great, and he wasn't going to be somebody out there, you know, being corrupt and
right.
I don't know.
But it's almost like the reverse of what usually happens, which is like the parent worrying about the kid getting involved with a bad crowd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
know. I feel like we were pretty innocent children, but then like worried about our parents more so.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that too, like being worried about your dad going out there as kids. I mean, that's serious. That's intense. And that's like just being aware of that as a kid. I don't know. I think that shows a level of maturity, because I think some kids are kind of just like, that's dad's job. You know, I'm going to go play, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I definitely had like a taste for what was going on around us a bit.
I mean, I think I did a good job. I think as far as like growing up on the south side of Chicago, I think our parents did a good job of making sure we felt safe in our house, everything like that. And I'm appreciative to have had.
Yeah, I definitely was hanging out in the neighborhood and being like, everything's fine. And I feel like as I got older, I was like, okay, I should, you know, watch myself a little bit. Yeah. But I did what they could.
No, of course. I mean, was where you were in Chatham, was it a rough area? Because I feel like especially South Side, it can be like block to block different, you know?
Yeah, I think it's more so a block to block difference. I think mainly our block that we grew up on is fine. It's like I could ride my bike from this corner to like my mom's like, you can ride from literally here to like right down like the next block. But I think outside of our exact block, there's a lot of things constantly going on. And even now, I think it's gotten closer and closer to where my mom still lives now. So
yeah,
can't really do anything about it, but
it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, that's Chicago, right? It's like, it's a wild place, but then from that wild place, so much amazing shit comes out of it. Yeah,
it's like it has both spectrums. It's like such beauty and such, you know, chaos and harm at the same thing.
No, absolutely. Well, yeah, I thank you for sharing that too. It's, you know, I never want to bring up something sad, but I think it's such a cool project that you guys did.
It's important.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about.
And I feel like as time gone on, it's like been like easier to talk about. Yeah, it's not ever easy, but you know.
Here's the last question I'll ask. The journal, could you see your dad writing in the journal?
Yeah, that was one of the main things with the way we kept revamping it. Even from the cover, we're like, okay, is this something my dad would even pick up? Because we wanted it to be like something more discreet, like something that didn't feel so like, I don't know. The first copy that we made, it was like red and white and blue.
Bright colors and all that.
It wasn't our. It was not within our control. But something that we always wanted to priority was: is this something that my dad would go in and buy or be comfortable carrying around? And so we wanted it to be very subtle, but also like information wise, be things that would resonate and like be able to, I don't know, dig deep within yourself.
Yeah, so someone who's like open with their emotions and someone who's a little more private and, you know, keeps that more reserved. And like the cover just says, remember why you started. And I think that's like the main message of, I don't know, the whole entire journal.
Yeah.
So many police officers and first responders, they start because they want to help out, you know, and by the end of the career, it's usually not that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I would say, I mean, you just said that's like the lesson of life too, but I think to bring it full circle, that it's something I talk about a lot on this show is like, for musicians and artists too, I think anyone who does this long enough, there's so much shit flying around. It's a chaotic, like wild career to do that I think you do it long enough and it can be hard to remember sort of why you started and like the sort of more innocent version of you that was just excited about the music or in love with the community or whatever it was. And It's a great note for anyone because you always end up having to go find that person and that inspiration again on a long enough timeline, you know?
Great now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's any career really. It's like, remember why, like what made you excited in the first place, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I'll ask you this last question. It's the same question I ask at the end of each one of these episodes. Just looking for a moment from your life, a memory from your life, and we can do each of you individually. And it could be from any time. It could be from when you were a kid, could be from last week, doesn't matter. When in that moment, in that memory, music really, really had a deep impact on you, really hit you hard, meant something to you in that moment. And that's meant to be a super broad question. It could be something as simple as the right song played on a nice sunny day and it's a fun memory, or you saw a concert that you just think about every once in a while, or a song maybe played when you're feeling sad and you cry. It could be anything. Sort of just the first thing that pops into your head.
I'm like, I have like a few juggling right now.
What's the first one you think of?
The first one I think of was the time that we were riding in our car as kids. I think we were probably 7 years old riding with my mom in the car. And she would always play Prince. And I remember she played Let's Go Crazy off of the like 1999 album. And that was like one of the first moments I think I like truly felt such joy with music. Like, I don't know. It's like this song is such a positive energy. Like you can't listen to this and not dance, like not enjoy this moment. And it was just one of those like joyous moments that just lives in my head. We were in the like little minivan, just like vibing and like dancing in the car.
Yeah, well I love that image because I relate to that because that's sort of the transcendence of music that I think we all chase to a certain extent of like, all of a sudden, it's almost like, oh, I'm not even in control of my body right now. Like there's something else going on and your brain short circuits a little bit. And it's those transcendent moments. I don't know. Sometimes I still get that when you're playing a show, that kind of thing. Like, I feel like I'm always chasing that dragon a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. My memory kind of touches on that. I was going to say it was the first time that we went to the Chosen Few picnic. We're a bit younger, but it definitely, I don't know. There's just like something about the energy there. I don't know if you've ever been before, but it's like the longest running house festival in Chicago. And it's basically tailgate style. So you rent out an area and you can bring your own grill, your own drinks. And there's a lot of different setups. And like my mom's friends, a lot of them go. It's like more of her friends than our friends. We'll go there and like hang out with them a lot of the time. And some young people will go. And I just remember a moment like when we first got to the dance floor, and it's just such a free space where like you can just tell no one's sitting there thinking about, oh, I'm gonna dance like this, and like, oh, what is the person next to me doing? It's just such a free, just like dance, let your body go type of energy there. People dance in LA, but it's not the same. It's just not the same. And it was just like one of those moments where it was just like, I'm back home. And just being able to like dance and let loose. It kind of felt like a resurgent of like my love of house music. So
that's beautiful.
Definitely that.
Yeah. And the fact that it's like tied to family and community and there's all age groups there. Like I do think, especially viewed through like the cool LA lens, like there's so much of the house music world that kind of gets like chopped off a little bit, you know? And this is maybe, again, bringing it full circle to talking about like growing up with music in Chicago and that kind of thing is, I think a lot of people who are just going to a random festival in their 20s, it's like, they're not realizing that like the roots of this music is like in neighborhoods and with families and playing on a Sunday afternoon while people are eating food, you know, that it's like, there's so much more history than sort of the EDM scene would have you believe, you know?
Yeah. Sure. It's really cool in these few diverse kind of areas where you're able to see the full range of the new age people with, you know, that OG crowd.
Yeah. Well, and that's, okay, this is the last thing I'll say, because I think that's perfect, is I think that's something you are doing with your music is kind of bringing, it's that the understanding of the history and the old school of it mixed with, you know, the new school, like energy and style and production values and all that. And I don't know, there's not a lot of people doing it well. So I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Yeah, that means a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
So
Yeah, absolutely. No,
That's what we're trying to do, you know? We definitely like have that as like our foundation and what we want to do. So thanks.
It's beautiful. Keep doing it. And thank you guys for doing this, man. I really appreciate it. I had a great time talking to you.
Good. Yes, you're great to talk with. So
I'm glad. Thank you. Awesome. Well, yeah, that's it. We're done. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And yeah, hopefully we run into each other somewhere out there.
Yeah, for real. Hopefully we'll like meet in person eventually. It's bound to happen.
Yeah, 100%. All right. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.